3, 2, 1. Here we go!
Welcome to the DFP Community Podcast, brought to you by Documentary Family Photographers Worldwide, DFP for short. I'm your host, Heather Whitten. If you're a fan of real, raw, and beautiful moments captured through the lens of family photographers from across the globe, you're in the right place. This podcast is all about showcasing the incredible work of everyday documentary family photographers you might not have heard of yet. Each episode will dive into the stories behind their photography, explore their unique projects, and get to know the people behind the camera. We're here to celebrate their journeys, encourage connection, and remind you that the world is full of inspiring photographers you can learn from and reach out to. So whether you're a seasoned pro, an aspiring photographer, or just someone who loves a good family story, get ready to be inspired, empowered, and connected. Let's get started. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm here with Lisa Hu Chen, a highly awarded documentary family photographer whose work consists of sports, food, travel, landscapes, after focusing on family work for years. And she is based in Southern California. Hi, Lisa. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, Heather. It's so good to see you.
Yes. I'm going to start off with, are you an introvert or extrovert?
I am an introvert, but my husband would say the opposite. I think it takes a lot of effort for me to be an extrovert, and I prefer to be an introvert. So I think I guess I'm an extroverted introvert.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it really does. And I relate to that so much. I think that I have tendencies for both.
Yes,
so
100%.
Yeah.
And this genre really, really fits our personalities, probably, at least mine, I think. It's just, I can be quiet and I can get involved if I want to, but I don't necessarily have to. And so I just find that it definitely is fitting to my personality.
Yeah. And how do you feel like when you do have to turn it on for like clients or working for other people?
It's really funny that you say that, because I had 2 sessions yesterday, and before every session, no matter what it is, I dread it. It's like, oh gosh, what if I'm not going to do good? What if I can't get any shots? Or, I'm almost psyching myself out, because I know that after I finish my session, it's like exercising. I dread it. I don't want to do it. And then afterwards I feel so good. I go through that every single time, and it doesn't matter what it is. The only time I don't do that is when I'm taking pictures of my kids, for, I think, obvious reasons. But anytime there's sort of like a pressure to be there or do this or do that, I get really in my head. And so that's kind of how I've accepted my process. I just go through the motions, and I know I have to pump myself up, and then I get there and, just take a deep breath. And of course, once I see the faces and I start taking pictures, I'm like, okay, that's a good one. That's a good one. And it's almost like a build up for the whole session, which is so weird.
I know.
Do you know what I mean?
I do. And I try to explain it to other people that there's like a roller coaster of emotions that happen, where it's like, oh, I'm on the top of the world and I'm doing so great. And then, oh no, I'm not doing good at all. This session is a complete flop. And it's all my fault. Yep. And then I get home and I pull up the pictures and I'm like, wait, no, I did get some good ones.
Totally. I run home. The first thing I do, I'm like, don't bother me, kids. Don't bother me. I just need to see that I got one picture.
Yes, it's so true. Like, you just have to know that you delivered, and then the anxiety comes back waiting to hear back from the client.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just a complete roller coaster.
Yeah, 100%.
But let's back up a little bit. Tell us about your photography origin story.
Okay. So it's pretty simple. I started taking pictures when I was in high school. Just had a camera. Like, I started out with one of those really small cameras that I got for Christmas. And I did a little bit in college, but it was always on auto mode. It was just my dad. I bought a camera with money that I earned my junior year in the summer. I think it was like I earned $300 that summer, and asked for some advice on what camera to get. And I got like I think it was a Minolta and an Olympus lens that, I was put together, and just kind of started carrying around it everywhere, but it was always on auto. I remember taking classes in high school and I didn't understand, like I never grasped the technical part of the photography thing. I think partly because I just wasn't ready for it. I was like kind of in class going, okay, whatever, do, let me just go take pictures. And so I almost regret not paying attention back then because, fast forward 20 years, I finally make a decision after I have my first child, like I think a lot of us, I said, I'm going to really focus on this. Like I'm going to really learn because I could tell my pictures weren't at where I wanted them to be. So, meanwhile, it's just a hobby for 20 years. And finally, one day I said, I'm going to, and this is back when there wasn't a lot of online classes. In fact, there was none. I think I found one. I think it was Nicole Studios, like long time ago. And, went through her class and kind of understood it, but I'm such a visual, like sensory learner that I said, I'm going to find a random photographer in the area and I'm going to just hire him for an hour and, try to learn. And that's what happened. I think I paid him $85 to go to his studio. He sat me down and he basically showed me my camera, which was another thing, right? Like I had my camera to work with, to learn with him. So that was really, really helpful versus just kind of looking on the screen and looking at pages and stuff like that. I don't know. At that point, I think I was ready for it, first of all. And because he was able to help me with my own camera, it clicked. And that's kind of how it just started going. And first couple things I started doing was volunteering at my school. Just brought my camera and did a bunch of events. And I think that was probably, I credit that a lot to where I am today, because at school, elementary school, you have kids running around, you have the worst lighting, you have the brightest lighting, you have the darkest lighting, you have all the, everything is going on at the same time. And I was really able to practice, even though my pictures weren't good, I was able to practice all the time by volunteering in the classroom, volunteering for, jogathon or whatever. And that kind of just started my journey into probably sports, but also just photographing children. And then fast forward a couple more years, I found DFP and went to the, amazing event. And it's a community that I hadn't had at all. And then found and just learned so much from it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful. You have a background as a graphic designer and a communications major. So how do you think those have helped you in your photographic endeavors?
Oh, I think so much. I did graphic design for 20 years. I worked in retail production, print production. I did worked at a boutique advertising agency for few years. And then I became a freelancer. So I started doing wedding invitation, baby shower invitations, anything I can sort of just make money from. And with all the variety of all of that, along with kind of having the camera sort of, on the side, but once in a while I would pick it up. It really, I think in like an unconscious way for me, helped me kind of just follow the path that both of them were intertwined in. So when I decided to really concentrate on my photography, aside from the light part and the technical part and all that stuff, like the composition part came pretty easily to me. I was able to take my frame, and instead of it being on like a 2D paper, trying to lay all the elements out, I was able to sort of see it through the viewfinder. And that, I just think helped me really, really feel confident about that aspect of it in order to give space to the other aspects of it that I knew I needed help in.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And you, like me, are a mother of 4, right? Yes. And how old are your children these days?
These days, I have a 20-year-old, a 15-year-old, he just turned 16-year-old, a 13-year-old, and they're boys. And then my youngest daughter is 11 years old. So amazing. I have, quite a big range of years in between my oldest and my youngest, which turned out to be really great in terms of documenting my family, because it was a long stretch of years, and I got a lot better from when I took pictures of my first child to when I took pictures of my second child. Um, so yeah, I learned and got better along with their, existence too. So yeah.
Yeah. And you photographed them, as you're saying, like throughout their whole childhoods and everything
Mhm.
like that. So, can you tell us a little bit about what the transition looked like for you as your children were getting older and you were
Yeah.
continuing to photograph them?
Yes, definitely. This is so interesting because, again, referencing documentary family photographers, I saw a lot of the people that I admired when I first started, got into this genre. A lot of um, a lot of the photographers had 4 kids, including yourself, like me, and some of them were older than my kids. And I remember following sort of their journey, and if they had shared, their kids, seeing that that they were transitioning from toddlers and little babies, which I kind of had at the time. My youngest was that, to it wasn't like they disappeared. It was just like they were photographing and showcasing different things. And I thought, oh, that's really interesting. Like, why would they do that? And I kind of thought back to my own experience where, for instance, when I was a graphic designer, I remember thinking, okay, I want to spend a lot of my life taking care of my kids. So I'm going to freelance. I was kind of like looking a few steps ahead of where I was at the time. And that's kind of how I think that's kind of how I came to see that there was a very clear transition for me. But even though it wasn't at the time, it was coming up. And that meant, looking into different genres, picking up like off camera, flash, skills. I wasn't there at the time, but I knew that in a few years I would be. And so it kind of made me look into other different avenues. Does that make sense?
That does. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love that. So, what would you tell our listeners with young children now
Mm-hmm.
about what you called the inevitable change ahead of them that their children are going to grow up?
Well, first of all, I want to clarify that, I don't I don't take clients I don't do sessions. So this was more a personal thing for me, taking photos of my own kids. Now, of course, if you have a business and you're taking family photos, documentary sessions, then I think you'll be able to just continue on, whether you take photographs of your kids along with your clients or whatever. But for me, it was really, you know, I would just say, if you're in the same boat, or maybe if you're not, that, looking ahead is never bad, right? Having a goal, whether it's 1 year, 5 year, 10 years. I don't have a 10-year goal, but I do have a shorter term goal. It's always good. It's beneficial for everything. And change is always, always good, because you're never going to lose what you have. You're going to always have those skills. But you can move on, or you can actually not move on, but just go on to other things as well. And I think that's how I looked at my family. Part of me felt there was a loss, because I really missed when they were kids. And I mean, really missed all those pictures that I could make. But the reality is, that it's not going to happen anymore. So what am I going to do going forward? It was kind of, that way of thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, I relate to that so hard. I think kind of that loss that we go through of
Yeah.
having access to children,
Yeah.
And that's debatable as well, like the access that we have with or without getting consent and all the things.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
and I want to talk to you about those things eventually as well. But do you have any tips for communicating with older children and teens around photographing them?
Right. So I do, it's so different. I mean, I don't know at what age it like switches from one or the other.
Right.
I'm not going to lie and say that I'm not intimidated when I still do some family sessions, lifestyle family sessions. So, I do get a little bit anxious when I know that it's a whole family of teens. Because I've had sessions where I could not get anything out of them, and I felt like it showed really hard in the pictures. In terms of tips, I mean, I I just really like to let them be who they are. And I know that sounds like such a cliche or such a like whatever thing to say, but to try to force a kid who doesn't want to do what he or she doesn't want to do doesn't get you anywhere. And I know that with my own kids, which is partly the reason why I love this genre so much, is because I don't have to make them do what I want them to do, 90% of the time. It's really just respecting where they're at the moment. And when you're with a family for 45 minutes, and you've gone through the warm-up times and you sort of gone through the whole get to know you, there's a point at the end where everyone gets really comfortable. And whether that's like laughing at my dumb jokes or just being used to it. There's a reason why people say to cull from the end of the session to the beginning, right? It's because those photos always end up looking so much more natural, I think, than in the beginning. So for me personally, giving the older kids space to be who they are and giving them permission and just saying, hey, look, you know what? If you don't have to smile right now, just, give me a little slouch or whatever. That really helps them, I feel, more comfortable. Now, of course, if I'm, taking photos of my own kids or their friends, a lot of them are really used to me being there, so they don't even notice me anymore. So that's always a plus. But, respect is I think is a really good thing.
Yeah. And I think there's something to be said about this being like a transitional period for them too, and something that we've all experienced in growing up and can relate to, I'm sure. And we all probably have pictures of ourselves in those tween and teen years just looking awkward or miserable. And
completely. I mean, if I'm doing, let's say I'm doing like a media day for a team, and the athlete has braces, or you can tell, right? As a mom, you can tell, as a photographer, you can tell that they're really sitting into their awkwardness. And at that point, anything that I say, they're going to listen to, because they're like, oh, I don't know what to do. Can you tell me? And it's just cracking a joke or making them exhale or doing something just gives them a little bit of a blip into who they really are. It sounds so weird because everyone's so self-conscious. If you're not a model, it's really hard to do what you have to do in front of a camera. So I think I'm really, really happy when I find a photo that I made of an older kid that looks natural to me. It makes me really happy, proud.
Yeah. And it's something that you really do well, following your work for all these years. Yeah.
Thank you.
I do want to talk about consent because it is such a tricky thing, like a tricky, blurry line on that gets clearer and clearer as the children get older and older. So what does that look like with your own within your own family?
With my own family. That's such a great question. And it's something that I'm always so conscientious about, especially for kids who aren't mine, So in the very, very beginning, when I was starting out and I wasn't really, really comfortable with having my, photographing my children's faces like straight on and putting them on social media. So I did a lot of, not necessarily faceless, but sort of like angled or, and they were at the age where, I wasn't really like asking, hey, is this photo okay? I just knew that they knew I was taking their picture and they knew that I was posting pictures. And I knew they knew because they would go on my phone and kind of look through my Instagram and see all the stuff that we had done before and make comments about it. And it was always very positive. So I knew that my kids were okay with it. As they started getting older, I would say probably after 13, actually my 13-year-old, he doesn't have a phone, so I'm not as conscientious about it. But for my 16-year-old, I now am trying to be more respectful and saying, hey, is this okay? And normally he is fine with anything, but there are a few that I've discovered lately where he's like, no, don't do that. So that's fine too. With my older son, he's 20, so he's an adult and I just do whatever I want.
Right.
He doesn't really care. So, he's okay. But with my daughter, I'm definitely a little bit more guarded. I'm more aware of, I mean, just younger kids in general, how dangerous it could be. So with her, I'm a little bit, I mean, I don't want it to sound like I'm being, partial to it or anything like that. But, I do ask her if this photo is okay, if that photo is okay. But I also try not to, at her age, put her whole face out there. So taking faceless portraits for me has always been in my sort of mindset. And I love seeing pictures of photographers who do it really well, really well. So it's always something that's been on my mind. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that it's been an ongoing evolution and conversation for
100%,
you. Yeah, I feel like that's kind of how consent has to be rolling. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. And eventually they get their social media accounts too. I have, my older boys have it, and I've actually never identified them on my own feed. I don't tag them or anything like that. I mean, it's just a preference that I have. I mean, I know that they get tagged and all that stuff, but it's kind of just a way for me to just keep it a little bit more, private than as if I was just putting it out there with absolutely no, thinking at all. Right. So just be a little bit more careful.
Yeah, I love that. What's the biggest perk of photographing older children and teens?
When they come to me and say, are you done with the photos? or
well,
this photo is, they use vocabulary that I'm going to sound really dumb using, but, they're just so excited. The other day, my 13-year-old has a really great group of friends. And they decided in secret to surprise my husband for his birthday by buying him his favorite snacks and making him a sign. And my son had told me, hey, they're going to come in. Can you take pictures? And I knew what he meant. He wanted me to, take pictures of the surprise and everything. So my husband was, clueless, of course. And we set it up and they walk in and I'm there in the corner as I usually am, taking photos of just the cutest thing. I mean, it was just so sweet. They made him this huge sign. He loves the Steelers. They put the Steelers logo on there. They bought a basket and put like all his favorite snacks in it with like a little bit of the blue raffia because it was his favorite color. Everything was perfect. And I took the pictures and I edited them and I sent them to my son and I said, hey, this is what I would like to share on my story. Is it okay? And my son's like, no, I look ugly or whatever he says, But then he sent it to his friends and his friends there were 3 friends and they were so excited. They're like, oh yeah, tell your mom to put it up there. Like that whole interaction is like, for me, just the best feeling because not only are they excited to see themselves in a way, right, that maybe isn't as prevalent right now for kids that age, but they're also acknowledging like my eye in looking at it, right? Like they're appreciating that. And I don't know, it was a huge like ego stroke for me because I'm like, if I can make a 13-year-old kids happy, like that's pretty good. You know what I mean? Yeah,
definitely.
So, I love
and
that,
it's something I think, like you just said, like something coming from a teenager, like acceptance or
oh my god.
All those things just coming from a teenager, you're just like, oh my god, I've made it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And I mean, just like the sports pictures are, it's so fun. They're the reasons why I do it. They're the reasons why I love to take those, even though, if you look at any sports picture right now, they only like putting pictures of their backs on there with their numbers and stuff like that, and it's like, okay, really? But, taking the action picture or taking the celebration picture or taking the, I didn't catch the ball picture, like those are all emotions and, that they go through that I just love seeing and I love like capturing. Honestly. Yeah.
You have a personal project of photographing all 4 of your children at once. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think photographers, especially documentary photographers with more than, one child or, I think this is a very common project. You want to always try to get your kids in one place and in one frame and just capture that moment. And it really stems from my own childhood, not having really any photos. I don't even know what my room looks like. I have a picture in my mind of what my room looked like when I was, 10 years old. Like I kind of remember the furniture and a little bit of the bed, but if I had a photo of it, I think I would just cherish that so much. And
Right.
that of course became an obsession for me, right? Everything that my child was, a part of, like I just wanted to document it, probably a little bit overboard, but I can still say I have it. And it was always just a quest for me to get them in the frame, whether it's eating dinner or when we travel or dropping off at school. Like I love that challenge because it's not easy. And then my oldest went away to college and I mourned that. Not so much that, I was sad he went to college, but I mourned the fact that I wasn't going to be able to get those photos anymore. And I remember taking a course at ICP and, I was talking to my instructor and I'm like, I think this is the last picture I'm going to have with all 4 of my kids in a frame. Like he's going away, and it was like, what am I going to do now? How am I going to, and I remember him saying to me, you need to just reshape your project. Like instead of it being always 4, how about the 3 that you have at home? And then really intentionally bring in the 4th one when he does come home. And that was like, with our genre, being intentional is so, so important. It's something that I live by, that I always think about. And it, carries out through so much of just you're living your life too. And I was like, oh yeah, like, why am I feeling like this is the end of it? And so going forward, most of the time when I am able to make any photos with all of them in the frame, it's either when we go travel or in holidays, during holidays, like the summer. And so every picture that I made, even though it's been like so much less, has been so much more intentional with it. And that in itself is special. That's going forward something that my next kid will go away, hopefully my next one, and then we'll see at the end of that how it all ties in together. I think it's very interesting. Long-term projects are for me so hard, but now I realize how important they are.
Right.
I think it's just, I don't know. I'm not that I'm saying I'm can't wait 20 years from now to see how my project, is, but I know that that's in the future. So that's exciting.
Yeah. Again, just looking ahead, and I love that theme.
Yeah.
So you do photograph a bunch of other types of photography, food, travel, sports.
Yes.
I almost said swimming because I feel like that's one of my favorite sports that you photograph.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
Because I just look at it and I'm just like, I would just be a huge ball of like anxiety and failure and all these things. And you do it so well.
Oh my gosh, thank you.
I couldn't even broach that. And you just
I doubt that.
master
I doubt
it.
it.
Oh,
thank you.
But so what was a photo for you in the beginning of branching out, where you felt like you were onto something?
That I took, that I made myself.
Using like a documentary approach to these type of photography sessions.
I can tell you exactly when I realized that that's the kind of photo that I wanted to make. It was actually when I took Chuck Anarino's class. He had a picture that I remember he posted. It was a baseball picture, and it was something that I had never seen, or at least I don't remember ever seeing anything like that before. It was just a baseball player throwing the ball, it was a wide shot silhouette. And it was the first thing that I looked at when I saw it, not that it was a baseball photo. It was that this is a story that he's trying to tell. And I think photojournalism, sports photography, there's sometimes a little bit of that, definitely in photojournalism. But this was the first time I saw like not an ordinary life. I don't want to make it sound like it's ordinary, but just like a life that I had that could be in an everyday scene for me. At the time I was taking pictures of my kids' sports, but it wasn't with intentionality. And I think that was the moment when I realized, okay, that's what I want to do. And I took Chuck's course and of course learned, he's amazing. And I learned so much from him, and then just kind of started in the back of my mind using that intentionality for the stories that I wanted to tell, on the field or on the court or on deck for swimming. And I don't know that I really did that in the beginning. It's really hard. It's not easy because people think when you take pictures of sports, for instance, that it's always about the action shot. You got to get these shot. You got to get these shot. And of course, that was something that I wanted to create. But it was more just like, how can I frame this image in a way that was pretty nice to look at, but also told a really good story. And that took a really long time for me, I think, to get to. Now I think there's a few pictures that I can think of that I did achieve that to some extent. But it wasn't without a lot of practice, and also practicing along with my kids too, and going to events or other genres, all of doing a lot of things helps you focus on one thing as well. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, I just feel like my training or my practicing or, my trying to achieve what I wanted to achieve, it comes not just that one moment. It's kind of like it's a buildup of a bunch of moments, and then, gosh, I got it. Or, let me work on the next one. So that's sort of always my goal when I'm taking pictures of sports, because it's not something that you normally would think about when you're trying to take sports pictures. You're always like, oh, he's carrying the ball and he's running with it, or this and that and this and that. And it's those pictures that I see that make me go, wow. Has a lot to do with the documentary approach, I think, for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you also apply this approach to food photography. So can you tell me a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, I spent quite a few years in sort of the food scene here. I've kind of steered away from that in the last few years, but there was a time when I was going to a lot of food events, a lot of openings, a lot of grand openings or whatever, and there were a ton of wonderful photographers there with lights and taking sort of the stylized pictures of food. And while I feel like that is such a skill and something that I would definitely love to work on more, I was always really interested in like food being sort of like a character of the people who are eating it. It's not weird as it sounds. And so to me, the photos that I loved making was around the table, getting like low, like where the dishes are, and taking pictures of people like coming into, it was sort of like creating scenes where food was the main character, but then the humans or the people consuming it were just kind of like surrounding it. That was so fun for me. And so there was a restaurant who really liked my style, who eventually hired me to help them with their social media and their pictures, but they were very specific. They're like, we like the way you do it this way. And I just never thought that was something that could be, I was like, oh, food, you need a stylist and you need this and to look pretty. But it's not that I was aiming to make it look beautiful and pretty and stylish. I just wanted to make it look real. Like, this is how we're all enjoying ourselves around the table with beautiful food and great conversation and having a lot of fun, And so now whenever I go to a restaurant, I always have my camera. I might take it out, I might not, but I'm always trying to get that one picture where it's like, oh, I want to eat that, but at the same time, I want to be there too. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's always, food is just amazing. So
yeah,
to make it look good is good.
I love that you, like you said a little bit ago about Chuck's image, it was showing a life that was yours. And I love one of the things about your work is that you really do bring the camera into all of these different aspects of your life, and your interests and all of those things. And I think that's something that a lot of us aspire to do. So if you have any tips for like branching out into other genres of photography besides like family and using a documentary approach, what would they be?
I think, just probably the same thing as anything else, bringing your camera everywhere and then creating a portfolio, or having sort of maybe like a collect. If you use Lightroom, for instance, I have a collection folder where I sort of name them like food, or I don't know, whatever the category is. And I'm always kind of squirreling away pictures that I think is portfolio worthy, or something that I would be proud to show somebody and say, hey, what do you think of me coming here and helping you with this? I'm always, anytime my friends or anyone I know has an opportunity, where they're working, or where they're going to an event, I'm like, well, if you need a photographer, I'm always there. And a lot of them know my work, so I don't necessarily have to prove to them that, this is what I can do. But I would say having just a grouping of photos that you can sort of keep on your phone and just be like, well, what do you think about this? People notice when something looks a little bit different or unique. And I feel like in general, documentary family photography is that something that's unique and different. It's not everywhere. It's not pervasive. It's not what you would expect. It's what you would, it's what shows up when you're least expecting it. I mean, at least for me, when I see a lot of the photos that I admire a lot, it's like, oh my gosh, like I want to see like that. Or, oh my gosh, like how did they turn that into this? And I think if people really, really, really understand it, then they're going to really want it. And, you want your work to really be loved by people who appreciate it, not just because it's out there. You know what I mean? I think that's what I've learned a lot over the years. Like, instead of trying to do everything that everyone loves, just do something that you love. And maybe it might be smaller or maybe a little bit less in production, but those people who get it are really going to understand it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that the people that get it and understand it are becoming more and more these days.
Yes.
Which is really exciting, because I feel like in the past it has been such a small group of people that want it. But it's growing, and that's such an exciting, especially because we all love this approach so much, you know, and we see the value in it. And so to be able to share that across all different types of photography, I think is so special.
It is really special. It's special. And, there's only so many times I can stand on the, rooftop and scream and say, look at this. But, people who will listen will listen and appreciate it. But you're right. I love seeing, my feed filled up with just these pictures of, of kids who I used to be what I had, the age that, my kids were at. And I'm like, oh gosh, I remember that. I remember taking a photo similar to that, or I remember being in a situation similar to that. It's like, it's just really special. Like you said.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I love it.
We're going to wrap up a little bit, but what creative outlets do you have outside of photography? Outside of photography. Sorry.
Outside of photography. Gosh. My family, my husband and I really, really love to travel. It's been a lot harder lately because, our kids are older and the schedules are a lot different. But sometimes we'll just, if we're feeling a little bit antsy, we'll just say, hey, let's drive 2 hours up to LA, and just hang out there one day. We like being in different places with our kids, because what I realized is when my kids are not at home and not doing the things that they're used to doing, like holding their phone and looking at, social media or whatever, they're locked in to us. They're present too. Once we get home, of course, and all the bags are dropped or whatever, everyone's back to the same thing, right? It's like, you're in your room, and yeah, I understand that that's the reality of things, and that's how it is to be a kid these days. But when we're outside of where that comfort zone, we really connect with each other. And as we know, for me, connection and intentionality is so key to my art. And that carries through to my life too. So we really like to do that. My daughter loves to bake. And so I like to, help her, or we like to look through recipes and come up with things like that. We're total, binge watchers, TV binge watchers. So at night, you're pretty much see me on the couch watching, shows and then falling asleep.
Yeah.
There. So these days there's not too many things I can get my hands into just because, life is busy. But those are the things that you'll find me doing a lot of when we do have time off or free time.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
What do you want your legacy to be?
Oh gosh, I think about this question a lot. I really do. I think about what my legacy is because, what I do can be, and I think we know this, it can be a lonely, journey. It's, I don't have any documentary family photographers or documentary photographers around me. A lot of my friends, they do different things. So I have all these photos and I have all these memories that I would really like to put together for my kids. I actually have a book proposal that I wrote 2 years ago that I still have. I haven't done anything with it. It's pretty much complete. And I don't know what's holding me up, but I think that's one way that I hope to have a legacy is maybe move forward with that and see where it goes. I think anytime you have anything published or put out there in the world is really great. Surprisingly, my kids reference, but like Google me a lot for some reason. I don't know. They tell me every once in a while, like, and this picture is on there and this picture is on there. That makes me feel good. Like it makes me feel really, really good. So, whether it's publishing a book or publishing a book just for the family, those are things that I know I would cherish if it were me, because I don't have any of those things. Right. So, I think just being the person who, was the memory keeper for, I knew her. Oh yeah, she took this photo. I had people come up to me showing me pictures that I took 5 or 6 years ago that they still have on their phone, or, and like, that's my legacy.
Yeah.
I love that. I love it. I don't, being out there for the world to see is like, I'm okay with it, with knowing that I did that for myself, like that to me sits really, really well with me. So as long as I know that I've affected my children or my husband or my family or my friends in a certain way, like I'm okay with that. I'm really happy. Yeah.
Yeah. You're doing it.
Thanks.
Where can listeners connect with you after the podcast is aired?
Please visit my Instagram. I don't do it as much as I used to, but I once in a while will still post, but I share a lot on my stories. So my Instagram is Lisa Hu Chen, LisaHuchen. That's where I mostly stay active. Once in a while on Facebook, because I just love all the Facebook groups. I learn a lot from, people showing their photos and discussions, read comments. I'm there a little bit more, but Instagram is my main way. And of course, you can always just DM me and we can start a conversation. That's happened so many times with people in the community. I've made so many friends, whether it's me reaching out or them reaching out to me, asking me questions or me asking them questions. Like, I wish we could all be in person together so I can see everyone in the flesh. Yeah. But for now, this is my community. This is, so many of you have touched me in ways that you might not know, but it has been. And I really, really cherish this platform and this space, and this opportunity with you, Heather, has been, I feel like I'm reconnecting to my old roots.
Yes.
Good.
That's exactly what the hope for this podcast was just connecting photographers to other photographers and shining a light on photographers that, people might not know about
Yes.
or see all the time, and just making those connections. So
Yes.
I love that you did a little call out for them to DM you, because that's exactly what I want to happen. And
I want to say one thing. I don't know if many listeners know, but I know Heather because we used to have a group, and I don't know that this would ever happen right now because it's just life has gotten so busy. But there was, I think, maybe 6 or 8 of us who were on a weekly call every single week. I remember it was Tuesday for a really long time, and we were from all parts of the nation, and we would call and talk for about an hour, and it wasn't even really for like a class or anything like that. You just reached out to a bunch of us and said, hey, do you guys want to get together? And that lasted for a while. And we would just, someone would be eating lunch at work. I remember Karen did that. She would be eating lunch at work, and, and it was so amazing. And that was what I had. That was what I needed, because I had none of that in my real life. And I think, as much as social media gets poo-pooed on sometimes and all that stuff, I agree it could be dangerous, but it could be great too. Yes. And for me, it's been really, really great. And just to reconnect with you again after all those years and talk to you like this, it feels really good. So thank you.
I agree. Thank you so much, Lisa, for being here with us.
Thank you for having me.
Of course.